Hello and welcome to Recruiter 360 TV with me, Toby Babb, and I'm joined today by recruitment royalty, DeeDee Doke. DeeDee, how are you? Thanks for coming in.
I'm great. Thanks, Toby. Good to see you.
Good to have you here. So DeeDee is the editor of Recruiter magazine, probably the most famous name in the recruitment industry, and a stalwart of the industry, someone who is equally as passionate as I am about the recruitment space. DeeDee, tell everyone a little bit about your background, if you will.
Well, like many others, I fell into recruitment.
Yeah.
Before becoming part of recruitment and HR journalism, I was a defense journalist.
Okay.
And I wandered into the wonderful world of recruitment, and I've stayed.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant industry.
And you champion so much of the good stuff about it, right?
I try to.
Yeah. And we see that your listings, like you've got the Hot 100,
Yes.
we've got the Fast 50,
Yes.
the Recruiter Awards not too far off around the corner, the investing in talent space. It is a great industry, and I talk about this all the time about why I think it's great, why I think it's fantastic, some of the amazing things that are happening in it. Yet still it has a bit of a reputation around it as well. What do you think? What do you think great recruitment looks like?
I think great recruitment looks like, and this is going to sound rather broad, but it's a space where candidates are listened to and appreciated, where clients are made, the recruiter becomes their trusted advisor, if you will. So you have that kind of relationship, and you have an internal work environment where people feel valued, they are productive, and they can't wait to come into work every day.
Yeah, and you've seen lots of different examples of that, right?
Yes.
And I think that's really important. You know, if great customer service often comes from a great environment and people feeling good about coming into work. What looks like a good place to work from what you've seen? You've seen companies now throughout the UK. You know a little bit about what's through the investing in talent about what a great company looks like. What are the best companies doing?
I would say the best companies are focusing a lot of attention on their internal workspace, because if you don't treat the people who are closest to you well, the people who are working with you well, then you're probably not going to have a terrific approach to those who are looking to you to find them a new role, or to those who must trust you to find the right people for their roles. I think that great recruitment has to start from within.
Yeah.
You know, you become a microcosm of great practice, and you're able to spread the word. You're able to be an evangelist for what great talent can bring to a business.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think it's really interesting you say that, because what you've just spoken about as to what great recruitment is, you know, looking after candidates, being trusted advisors to clients, it's not a difficult process, right? It is the fundamentals of the job. It is looking at the very basics. And when we set this company up, there was one thing which we were looking to do, which is just do the basics brilliantly. There was no other USP other than to be decent people and try and do, you know, listen to candidates and do all that sort of stuff. Why do you think there's still such a stigma and an issue around how some candidates and some clients will see the recruitment industry?
I think often there is a gap somewhere. If people become too focused on only filling a role that has these parameters, I think that causes them to block out different kinds of people, different kinds of skills. I think you end up being too focused on one thing, and you take your eye off the ball generally. And I think that can give recruiters that rather transactional reputation. Yeah, we want to fill a bum on seat. You'll do.
Yeah.
Off you go.
Yeah.
So I think that recruiters have to constantly be surveying the landscape.
Yeah.
I think in terms of people, in terms of what's happening in their markets, what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
I think you need a broader view so that you can narrowcast your needs better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an interesting view, because quite often you see recruiters and you know, their KPIs or whatever they look at are focused on filling jobs, and they look at things and say, right, how can we place the jobs that we've got on a big board of opportunities, and the candidate then does become a commodity. And where I think you see world-class recruitment happen is where, yes, you have a service to the client, and yes, you want to provide a great, the right people to them, but you're also saying, right, where can I take this candidate, and where can I find the right opportunity for that person? Where can I see my candidate as an opportunity to find them the dream role for them? And I think that's sometimes a bit of a dying art, isn't it, in the recruitment space?
I think it can be. I think, you hear a lot of talk about pipelining.
Yeah.
And I think that astute recruiters are able to pipeline in a variety of different creative ways, looking at the kinds of candidates they're coming through.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity to build something around this kind of candidate?
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity to get clients that operate in a different space to meet this need?
Yeah.
I think that describes how I feel this. I think there's too often there's not a broad enough view taken.
Yeah, it's because this is an interesting thing. In a world of digital evolution and more technology coming into recruitment, what we're saying here is that actually the sort of fundamental differentiator for a business, a recruitment business at the moment, or a recruiter, is just to be almost more human, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
And we may be talking about this in a minute, but sometimes people talk about the future of recruitment, and they link that to specific kinds of technology.
Yeah.
Technology is great, but I think you can never get away from the fact that the technology has to be a means.
Yeah.
It does not define what you do.
Yeah. And do you see examples of where man and machine are working really well together?
I think that when AI is applied with some skill and expertise, and heaven knows that's a really burgeoning area of work. It's I don't think anyone's completely nailed it yet, but using AI to complement human skills, I think can be a very good way of man and machine working together.
And it's the evolution of AI, right, as well, because I think sometimes people sort of don't demystify the whole world of AI a little bit. If you look at it in its truest, I guess, sort of sense, the intuitive nature of LinkedIn, the intuitive nature of your CRM system is AI already in action, right? It's parsing, it's Boolean searching, it's being able to see who other people are attached to on social media and all that sort of stuff. That's AI already working in recruitment, right?
It is, and I think you really nailed it there. Any of those tools that you mentioned, LinkedIn, Boolean, and so forth, yes, there are things those tools can do for you, but the expertise and the intuitiveness comes from the human that's operating it and telling them what to do. Yeah,
and that's where I think the two have to run hand in hand. Yes, we'll see some evolution in the industry, but we'll see people who, we run a program called Faster, Better, Stronger, and it's about utilising technology to be faster. But it's about making sure we have better consultants who are well trained and knowing their marketplaces, and then also using that skill to have a stronger relationship with the client. And that, to me, is where a little bit of the industry heads towards. Are there thoughts you've got about where our industry progresses and what sort of disruption or future we see?
Because recruitment is a people industry, sometimes I think it's a little too easy to forget. There is something recruiters do. They find people for jobs. That's what they do. The basic, that basic role is not going to change as long as there is a recruitment profession. The hows will change, the whys will change, the volumes will change, but the job itself doesn't really change. You can have different results. As somebody, can you leave a client very, very happy and have them coming back for more and more and more? Hopefully that improves. Having a pool of candidates that will not work with anyone for you, either to find their own new job or when they get into a position where they're hiring, to work with you. Those improvements, those failures, those change, those ebb and flow.
You mentioned there about the stream of people who come, who want to keep coming back to you, clients who keep wanting to buy again from your brand, and candidates who don't want to leave you, and that loyalty. What do you think people are doing that the best companies, the best recruiters are doing it, or people who could change to get to this sort of thing? What makes someone come back?
Dealing with a human.
Mm-hmm.
I won't use the word nice. Personable
Yeah.
is the word I need, but a genuine interest
Yeah.
in needs and a problem-solving mind about how can I solve this problem for this
Yeah.
person. Very soon after I joined Recruiter, some years ago now,
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of interviewing someone who continues to stand out in my mind as a wonderful, I don't want to put an end to his career by saying this, but an wonderful end result. He told me about how he had worked, finding people jobs, and
Yeah.
now, they were coming to him for jobs. And this guy is a survivor.
Yeah.
He's not in the company that he was when I met him, but he's a survivor. And there's a charm there.
Yeah.
And there's a way that he approaches people that makes you feel like he's listening to you and
Yeah.
you have his attention at that moment. And he has success. He
Yeah.
has same people coming back and back and back.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what, it's again, going back to when we first began the company, there was a strapline that we used, and it was excellence through understanding. And excellence through understanding is exactly what I think you're talking about there. About really, we thought the one thing that we could do if we were to start a company, which was 2010, so it was the recession. It was a marketplace where no one, was really hiring, and you had to work really hard to do it. We thought, what's the one thing we can do to stand out? And we thought it was to ask better questions, more questions, and actually understand where people wanted to go and who they wanted to be, or who they wanted to hire and such like. And it's really refreshing, actually, you say that it seems the future of recruitment remains, to me, the same thing that it's been from, I first started in January 2000. And 18 years, you've seen a whole world of change in the industry, from the fax machines through to LinkedIn's arrival, through to what may be AI next, or whatever you want to look at. But the one thing that's been consistent from my very first week in recruitment was the whole job is 95% qualification of candidate and client, isn't it? And that's when you come back to it, that seems to be the answer.
I don't want to get across the idea that I think recruitment should be this wonderful, touchy-feely, soft business. It isn't.
Yeah.
It is a business, and in many ways it is a sales business.
Yeah.
You need tough love in a business like this. If somebody is not delivering, they need tough love. But again, there it's excellence through understanding. Why is this person not delivering if they work for you?
Yeah.
You need to understand why maybe a candidate hasn't delivered, in the past.
Yeah.
It's a tough love business, but I think the love part does have to be there at all times.
Yeah. Yeah, I think tough love comes back to honesty about how you deliver feedback, doesn't it? And I think quite often, as a recruiter, it's best intentions and worst execution. No one really likes giving people bad feedback. No one likes telling people that they're a no from an interview. But sometimes those consultants who genuinely stand out that I've seen over that sort of period are the ones there who will deliver feedback and deliver it constructively and actually look to help someone move it. It's a service industry.
Well, one other thing, and I hope I don't embarrass you, Toby, by saying this, but one of the things that has always stood out to me about Harrington Starr is that your company has met client needs and candidate needs they may not have known they had.
Yeah.
And that's been very exciting to watch in that space.
It's very kind of you to say. We tried. I am a bit embarrassed, but I'll let you say it.
Let me embarrass this man.
No, and I think it is genuine. Look, the thing that to embarrass back, the thing that I think that's always been really interesting about watching you and how whatever you've ever written or whenever you've spoken at the awards or anything that I've seen on it is a genuine passion for it. It is a great industry that we work in. It is an industry which genuinely changes people's lives for the better or worse, depending on how you on how you deliver it. And I think sometimes we give ourselves a bit of a bad rep for that as an industry. And the thing that I think's always come through from you is, and I've seen you talking about it. I saw you talking about it just before the general election. That's at that time, night before the general election, where you were saying that this is a fantastic industry to be in. And we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. You know, recruitment's a professional service. It's listed as a FTSE as a professional services company. Professional services companies include lawyers, accountancies, management consultants, and we're in there sometimes as the sort of stray cousin, the feral cousin that turns up at the wedding. But of all those four professions that you can list there as a comparator, this is the industry that's going to have the most fundamental difference to any company's success, any individual's success. And I think we, you know, as the industry continues to professionalise, and I have seen it improve demonstrably over the last 18, 19 years or so, and I'm sure you've seen the same. If we can do that sort of thing, I think we've got a hugely exciting period of change coming up for us as an industry.
I do too, and I think part of that is associated with Brexit. I mean, who knows what is going to be the final form of Brexit? Is there going to be a Brexit? We don't know.
Yeah.
But the challenges that Brexit is throwing up before it has even happened, you know, with people leaving the UK, industries leaving the UK en masse and so forth. Recruiters have a real challenge on their hands to deal with all the various outputs of that. That is going to bring about some exciting change in the profession that I can't even begin, you know, to foresee, aside from setting up branches of your company or subsidiary companies in other countries. That's kind of the practical side about it.
Yeah.
But how do the practices have to change?
Yeah.
Do you sell candidates on an industry? Do you sell them on a company? Do you sell them on personal opportunity? How do you capture this zeitgeist and turn it into profits, or at least viability?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of globalization of recruitment companies from the UK over the last few years in particular.
Yes.
I think probably the last 10, 15, it's exploded a lot more. Why do you think that's been so successful for UK companies to work internationally?
Well, I may be a bit biased here, but I think UK recruiters are the best in the world.
Okay.
And I think that there are different business models that travel very, very well.
Yeah.
I think the UK recruiter has a very consultative approach. You know, we know in the industry that sometimes there's some hammering that goes on, but to the outside, there's a more consultative, more business-like approach to it than I think other countries, and I know I'm generalizing, have at this point. And to a large extent, I won't say a uniform extent, because there have been some business failures out there, but I think that UK recruitment companies have been more successful at laying down roots, galvanizing the market, mobilizing their resources to make it work elsewhere around the world.
Great. This globalization is a really interesting aspect of what we're looking at, and there are UK companies, as you say, who've been hugely successful in America. You know, we grew 142% in America last year, and I'm so excited about where our growth spreads throughout the whole of that world as well. But Asia equally, we've seen Europe being really successful for UK recruitment businesses. There's a lot of opportunity. Where do you see as the sort of next frontiers? Where do you see the big opportunities for UK businesses to globalise?
I'm going to put that answer into two parts. I think, first of all, it's not enough to go and plant the flag and say, we're here and we're going to be here for, 200 years. I think some of the most successful companies have been very agile about where they have started their businesses. If one location isn't working abroad, recognize it, pull up, and go somewhere else. I'm not talking about fly-by-night operations, but I'm saying, give it time to work and so forth. And if it doesn't, know when you've had it. and
It's that
move
sunk
on.
cost fallacy, isn't it? About people sort of still want, because they've invested, they want to invest more until it works, and they can end up overexposing themselves sometimes.
Yes, and I think there has to be a way to start and without throwing everything at it,
Yeah.
but to be agile, to
Yeah.
be mobile.
Yeah.
You know, again, this keeping the eyes wide open.
Yeah.
A part of the world, there are a couple of the parts of the world that really interest me in terms of recruitment. Although I think geopolitical considerations,
It changes, doesn't it?
it can change everything. Africa is really an
Okay.
unknown.
Yeah, yeah.
There's not a lot of presence
Yeah.
there. You know, every African country has a lot of 4G capability,
Yeah.
which is great, but recruitment hasn't taken hold down there.
Yeah.
And strictly from a curiosity standpoint, I'm wondering, what are the opportunities
There's more and more
there?
offshoring, isn't there, going on from South Africa at the moment, I've noticed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And of course, you know, in Nigeria, you know, where the oil industry is big, there are a lot of contractors and so forth.
Yeah.
The Baltics also really interest me.
Yeah.
That's a part of the world where I think geopolitical considerations are going to play a big part in risk management in terms of whether companies go over there big time.
Yeah.
But those areas, you know, a lot of people from those parts of the world come here. What's the opportunity to capitalize on those locations
Yeah.
to put those people into work, you know, there if they don't want to be here,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah. That's really interesting, isn't it, from a macroeconomic issue as much as anything else as well.
Or to even put UK people in those locations to maximize some of the opportunities that they have there.
Yeah, we need to stop the skill shortage over here first, though, don't we?
Well, and that's a whole nother thing.
Don't come on to that. Yeah, no, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, which I'm really interested in. You mentioned the whole concept of, you know, great service to customers starting from within. There's a couple of things you've seen. Specifically, you know, from companies you've looked at about what creates a great work environment, and anyone was looking at that and saying, right, that's something which we could do in our place or whatever it is. What would you say that is the best practice around that?
I think there are a couple. In some ways, I really hate the expression diversity and inclusion because it sounds very pat.
Yeah.
It sounds like this kind of tick box thing.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond looking at race, age, ethnicity, and this kind of thing, but looking who people are when they come to work. And I think that recruiters have long had the stereotype of themselves, you know.
You could draw one, couldn't you?
You could, yeah. And you know where they get their hair done, you know, the tanning salon, all of this kind of thing. And I think breaking loose of the stereotypes that recruiters have about themselves is one place of changing how it works. Yes, you have to have a certain drive.
Yeah.
You have to have ambition. You know, be very goal focused. But that does. Lots of different people have that trait.
Yeah.
They just may not all manifest it in exactly the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's important.
I think that's really interesting because it is. I think there was probably a cookie cutter approach to what a recruiter looked like, particularly in my sector, the IT sector, for a long time. And the from diversity in backgrounds becomes great strength in it, and we have such a variety of people out in our office from different ages through to different backgrounds, from different educational backgrounds, whatever it might be. And I think a few years ago we looked at realistically looking at three different things in terms of how we looked at a hire for our business. The first part of it was the person. So are they fundamentally a decent person? They're someone who's likable, a storyteller, but also a very good individual. First and foremost, and if you hadn't got that, the rest of it around it would rot. The second side was a professional. Is it someone who wanted to really work hard and be great at their craft and to learn and to want to represent themselves in the business professionally. And then the third part of it was almost the by consequence, which is the recruiter. So someone who knew how to simplify, someone who knew how to understand and listen, and all of that thing together. So we've got the person, the professional, and the recruiter. And that kind of doesn't matter whether it is a stereotype, because some of those stereotypes are great people and great recruiters, or it's someone completely from left field around it as well, or right field. Is it?
You're talking about shared values.
Absolutely,
instead of surfacey kinds of considerations.
Yeah. No, I love that. So, okay.
Yeah.
So let's finish up with one final question I always
Yes.
ask. So if you had a recruiter in front of you and that recruiter asked a question, you said, look, give me one bit of advice. What would that one bit of advice be that you would give them back?
Okay, and again, I hope this doesn't sound too corny.
I'm sure it won't.
But going back to taking a broader view of things, when you look at a CV, find something in there, even if it doesn't specifically relate to the job at hand, that is interesting about that person.
Yeah.
That will not only turn that person, that candidate, that self-nominee into maybe a viable candidate, but it turns them into a human for the recruiter. It makes for a more interesting conversation. If you are interested in something about this person, then you are going to be able to tell their story in an interesting way to somebody else. If you cannot put them in a role, if there is nothing on your books for them, you can at least see what they might have that they could offer somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm a real advocate of a personal approach instead of yeah, I got your CV, thank you, goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, a classic bum on seat sort of play, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's the biggest one.
I think it's it is the human aspect of the job, and whenever I've worked with a candidate who I really want to do something, who you really know and you like and you trust them, that's when you really want to do a great service for them. The same with a client. If there's a client there who you've got a real great relationship with and you do that, it's where you do your best work. So I 100% get what you're saying. If you want to do your best work, have an interest, and if you've got an interest, then you're able to make things happen after it, aren't you?
You are, and that reminds me of one other thing that I'm going to just throw out there.
A bonus bit of advice.
Well, it has to do with the use of social media.
Yeah.
And I think social media has become a real crutch for an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't think people are using it very well to represent their own branding, their own selves.
Yeah.
It's as if they don't think they're very interesting, but they should. The recruiter needs to make themselves interesting before they can interest anyone in doing business with them.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about saying, oh, I made X millions last year, or focusing purely on the profit.
Self-promotion, effectively.
Yeah. What is something interesting about yourself that you can tell a prospective client or a candidate that makes you good at what you do, or that is about who you are?
Yeah, that authenticity and delivering who you and your brand are, and that approach, I think, is massively undervalued, isn't it? Yeah,
and it's not about hype.
Yeah,
it's about authenticity.
Yeah, and I think hype sometimes gets found out pretty quickly, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a genuine play and a commitment. It is a commitment to getting that sort of stuff right, I think. And as soon as you start to play around with it, too much, you lose that integrity. And I think that's just as dangerous as not doing it at all.
Yes.
Yeah. DeeDee, it's been an absolute pleasure.
And for me too.
Thank you so much for coming and being
Toby.
on the show. And we will see you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for watching, and we will see you again soon on another episode of Recruiter 360 TV. Thanks for watching.